Joe Biden gets whisked away to the bunker. Wait, where have we heard this before? Oh wait, it's almost like the president doesn't have a choice in this. But as an aircraft flies dangerously low to his Delaware beach house. So we will talk just a bit about what was going on with that and where that goes and what happens with that. 2 more shootings, which will inspire more calls for more gun control, happen over the weekend as Congress gets ready to pass a 1,000% tax on evil, scary black rifles. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that and where that is going. Kyle Rittenhouse's lawyer looks to target Facebook in a defamation suit, and this is the lawyer that represented Sandman as well. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that and where we go. And Biden tells you what you are supposed to believe, that you as Americans have much, much more in the bank right now. Don't believe how hard it is to go back and buy food. You have much more in the bank right now. So we'll listen to a speech and we'll talk just a bit about what's happening there. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome to midterm season. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You guys didn't hear any of what I just said over that. So, good morning, Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. As I was just saying, in my little bit of an instance without the microphone on, that we're going to set the Instagram side up too, because, hey, we don't do that enough, and I have my phone actually fully charged right now. So, yeah, we get that set up. That's actually going right now. So if you want to tell a friend who doesn't happen to want to go watch on YouTube or anything else, your favorite social media platform other than Twitter, because I know a lot of you are coming over here from Twitter, you can also find me live over there. You won't get to see the news and you won't get to see the videos, but you can see me and hear me comment on what's going on over there. So join on the Instagram side. It is a bit more of an announcement machine than anything else, but you can go check that out as well. And let's get started. But before we do, guys, go make sure and check out The Porch Boys, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, and The Already Conservative, all members who are going to be starting up on turnsofpagesproductions.com. I took a week off. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I took a week of kind of being a little bit lazy as we were going through here and, actually getting to do stuff after work when I got done with work, because hey, we could. I did a play test on Fallout 3, which we also had a fantastic stream of Fallout 3 over the weekend. If you guys want to come and see that, or the VOD is still up if you guys want to go watch me play around in the wasteland and say nasty words that I'm trying very, very hard not to say in Contemporary anymore, because we can also have you guys help out and tell your friends that I do compete with the AM radio, and you don't have to hear 15 minutes of commercials every 10 minutes over here, or get your news from somebody who, as always mentioned, wears a suit that costs more than your house. So go check all those things out. But after this week off, I'm back down to the grind. I will be looking into a way to supplement and pad my income right now. So there's that aspect of everything that's going on here. Plus, I'm going to be spending and focusing a lot more on the website. looking into finding ways to raise the money to get up there. And even if I can get successfully onto this padded income, maybe even just using my own money to get to it. I know with what I'm making right now, that's an impossibility. But, if I can take some time and throw some extra money into that from what I've got going on, from what I'm doing off to the side, then perhaps, yes, we can turn around and get this website up and going. And I'm going to be focusing on that, getting some more people in here. I'm going to start talking to people for writing, even though we don't, of course, have a hard website up there. More people to come and write articles for this. I've started the other project. Some of you know about it. I know I'm KTZed, and I mentioned it. I'm writing a book, even though you'll never find any of the snippets of it because I'm writing it under a pen name. I've shared it with a few of you, but there is that, so go and check that out. But otherwise, yeah, the week off is over. Back into the grind, just there's not going to be any more Monday night shows. So I have freed up a lot of time, a ton of time through the week. I didn't even realize, I'm sitting around on Sunday, what do I do? I'm supposed to be in a flop sweat panic right now, trying to figure out how to get the document done at a reasonable hour. So whoever my co-host is, whether it be Katie or Elaine or whoever the guest host was, can sit down and read it and be prepared for the next day. And I'm sitting in the chair looking around why am I not panicking? What's going on here? But anyway, we got to get into the news. We are way behind already. And we've got a big stack today. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with finance, as we always do. Looking in at the Dow. The Dow was spent Friday night down almost entirely throughout the entire day. I think there was just one little peak that came back up over the previous close, but otherwise down and down below the 33,000 mark again to 32,899.70. Now it looks like the futures are turning back up and it will peak back above the 33,000 mark, but when we look at the gas, there's a point where people are going to stop buying, whether it be stock or whether it be buy the products that the stock is supposed to hold up. So we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes. And we'll be looking at the gas too. So definitely go and check that out. But yeah, 32,899.70 was Friday's close. We'll see what happens with that and where we go with that. Bitcoin, congratulations to those of you who bought the most recent dip because you've taken a slight little turn back up. I'm sure that most people watching this program have not bought an entire coin. Although a couple of you could afford it if you really wanted to. I'm sure that not everybody in here has. But what was once, when we last looked at this, into the high 20,000s mark, is now back into the low 30,000 marks after a significant jump overnight from the 5th to the 6th last night. Up to 31,399.10. That is over the 5-day, up 1,600 rather, 10 US dollars and 40 US cents. But even just this little significant jump over here is probably about that too. So that's what we see off of that. We will continue to see whether that jumps or drops or dives or where it goes, but that's what we see off of that. Gas, that's another story. Your low price leader in Madison, when last we looked, was 432, I believe, was the lowest one up there. We are up to 454, and that's all the way out in Waunakee. The Costco in Sun Prairie is at 454. The Costco in Middleton is at 459. But we are seeing prices all the way up to 464 around the Madison area. Actually, that Cenex there is closer to down by me. I'm not going to lie. But the Quick Trip in Madison proper is up to 464. The Phillips in Monroe is up to 464. So we're taking some of the things outside of the Madison area, it looks like. Monroe, but we still have one outlier in the Madison area that's jumped up. So we're holding down by me over at 464 as well. So that's what we see off of that. And we're looking at a situation where it's going to be harder and harder for anybody to get up and go and move. Cut the supply. Now, again, as I mentioned on Friday, there may be some relief coming. We have yet to see how this relief is going to affect the systems, how it's going to affect, but OPEC is looking like they're getting ready to come back out and turn the spigot back on and pump and pump and pump and pump. I don't know if it's going to happen, and I don't know what it's going to do to the markets. I doubt it'll get us back down to 91 cents a gallon. But even in the mid-threes right now would feel a lot better than this shit. But that's what we see off of that. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures signals solid market rebound as Chinese stocks lead, from Ed Carson. I don't have a live chat up here. Let's get that up so I can see what you guys are doing. Dow Futures rose solidly Monday morning, along with the S&P and the NASDAQ futures, signaling a rebound for the stock market rally after losses this week. Tesla and Apple stock rose, while Chinese and solar stocks were strong early gainers. The major indices retreated modestly in a holiday-shortened week, but the key levels, even as Federal Reserve policymakers signal big rate hikes are likely for several more meetings, but that's unclear if the recent market action was bullish or bearish. Investors can have slim to modest exposure, but need to be ready to step back. Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 2.7% on Monday. Chinese stocks rallied on a variety of factors. Beijing lifted some pinko pox restrictions a few days after Shanghai ended its lockdown. Regulators are reportedly close to wrapping up a DD Global probe, raising hopes for an easing tech crackdown. Alibaba and JD.com were higher Monday morning. China EV stocks such as Li Auto rose on general optimism, and with several new models set to be unveiled or begin deliveries on the next several weeks. U.S. and Chinese solar stocks bounced, including Enphase Energy, as President Brandon reportedly moves to allow solar-related imports for the next 2 years. Apple will hold its annual Worldwide Developers Conference all week. Apple will show off its latest operating system changes. There's buzz that Apple will reveal an NFL streaming package. Still, Apple stock fell solidly on Friday, closing lower for the week. Tesla tumbled on Friday and for the weeks as Tesla CEO Elon Musk reportedly wants to cut 10% of the salary jobs. Amid a super bad feeling about the economy, Musk later clarified those remarks. Beyond the Tesla move itself, it's a reminder that volatile, highly valued growth names can make big moves off the bottom, but also sell off hard. Tesla and Apple rose before Monday's open. Stocks to watch. Hold on. And we'll talk about this later on in the show, with Russia firing missiles off back into the Ukraine. What's the top one to watch here? Defense contractor, Northrop Grumman. Dollar Tree, Flex LNG, Albemarle, and Zim Integrated Research are 5 stocks trading near buy points. All have relative strength lines at or near highs, a bullish sign. The RS line, the blue line in the charts provided, tracks a stock's performance versus the S&P 500 index. Northrop Grumman and Albemarle are on the IBD leaderboard. Zim Integrated is on the IBD 50. No video. We're not going to watch the video because this is archived. On the futures, Dow Futures rose 0.8% versus fair value, S&P rose 1.1%, and the NASDAQ jumped 1.6%. Remember, overnight action and over the weekend action in Dow Futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see coming up with that. Let's grab one from CNBC, and then we will talk about Bunker Baby Biden. Although you will never see that one take off over on Twitter. You can hashtag that all you want and it'll get suppressed and pushed down because, hey, we can't talk about our president like that. Hey look, American heathen, please take 7 minutes out of your day and watch. This is my response to the GOP and their corrupt and deadly ideology. Ha 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 ha. No, fuck you. I have no respect for anybody who is going to try to disarm our people. Especially when it seems like the government is getting ready to do something we would shoot them for. Alright. Let's see what CNBC has to say. Dow futures jump more than 250 points as Wall Street looks to bounce back from losing week from Yoon Lee. Futures jumped Monday as Wall Street tried to rebound from a losing week. Futures on the Dow gained 261 points or 0.8%. The S&P and the NASDAQ rose 1.1% and 1.4% respectively. Sentiment got a boost early after Beijing rolled back some COVID-related restrictions. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reported that Chinese regulators are wrapping up their investigations into ride-hailing giant Didi, potentially signaling that country's crackdown on its tech sector may be coming to an end. Early morning action followed another disappointing week for investors as the major averages suffered modest losses. The blue-chip Dow fell 0.9% for its ninth negative week in 10, while the S&P and the Nasdaq lost 1.2% and 1% respectively. Last week, for their eighth losing week in 9. Investors have been grappling with fears that the central bank could raise interest rates too fast and too much, causing a recession. Dude, we're there. Recent statements from the rate-setting Fed members indicate the 50 basis point or half percentage point rate increases are likely at the June and July meetings. The U.S. economy added 390,000 jobs in May, which came in better than expected despite fears of an economic slowdown amid the roaring pace of inflation. In May, would that not be about the time when most of your high schoolers and college kids are either coming back home, looking for some extra spending money, or your high schoolers are out of school looking for some extra spending money? Do you think that correlates? In our week, last week's economic data showed the U.S. economy remaining resilient. John Stoltzfus, chief investment strategist at Oppenheimer, said in a note to clients. Some investors believe strong hiring data could be clearing the way for the Fed to remain aggressive. Yeah, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Which is sad because this is a dedicated financial website. For now, the market sees a Federal Reserve trying to navigate a painful and bumpy road, yet trying to find a soft exit, said Quincy Crosby, chief equity strategist at LPL Financial, and the market finds itself between wanting to believe in the rallies and not believing that the Fed can negotiate a soft landing. Shares of Amazon rose 1.5% in pre-market trading ahead of the first session since a 20-for-1 stock split. Investors will be focused on the Consumer Price Index reading for May, which is slated for Friday morning release. The key inflation gauge is expected to be just slightly cooler than April, which could be interpreted by some as a confirmation that inflation has peaked. It hasn't. And one thing to keep in mind, and I was going to tweet this last night and I didn't actually get around to it, so I'll probably do it after the show here, is whatever number they tell you the inflation is. And I said the same thing when the inflation cooled a little bit last month. Just remember, whatever the inflation number is that they tell you is going to be such a miracle, such a great thing, is on top of the 5.5% that it was the year before. Keep that in mind. What they're comparing to now versus what they were comparing to January, February, March is after the inflationary spending got into full massive swing. Hard swing. But they're not going to tell you that. They're going to say, oh, hey, we only got 70.9% inflation this month. Yeah, after we started to see the big numbers, because the big numbers started to pop up in about May last year. And it was just transitory then. I told you not to take that government check. But nobody listened to me. Everybody went back to try to justify it. Oh, it's our money anyway. No, it's not. Your money's already spent. They're printing that. Oh, it must be nice to have so much money that you can turn away free money. Well, look at what that free money did to us. All right, but that's what we see off of finance. Let's get into the major news of the day. And we're going to start with Bunker Baby Biden, which again, you can hashtag that all you want. And Twitter is just going to suppress that because, that doesn't fit the narrative. President Biden is strong, unlike that bunker baby Donald Trumpler, evil Donald Trumpler. So we'll start from CBS. Biden's briefly moved to secure location after plane entered restricted airspace near beach house. How much money do you actually have to have? Well, and I do understand this, the presidency too, and the Secret Service has some say on that. But to have restricted airspace near your house, near your private residence. My God, man. Also, Horatius, I'm jealous because $62 to fill a tank is cheap to me. I'm looking at $1.50, $150. From Bo Erickson. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden were transported to a safe location for about 30 minutes on Saturday after a small plane entered the secure airspace over the family's house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. You know, what they're assuring us left and right is a major epidemic of gun violence that needs to be addressed, and we need to be working 24/7 for. And where is our great president? In Delaware, at his beach house. The White House said in a statement that a small private plane entered restricted airspace. All indications are by mistake and precautionary measures were taken. There was no threat to the president or his family, the White House added. The Bidens left secure location at 1:29 p.m. Eastern Time. The White House confirmed they went back to their residence around 2:05 p.m. Eastern Time. The aircraft was immediately escorted out of the restricted airspace. Preliminary investigation reveals the pilot was not on the proper radio channel, was not following the NOTAMS notice to airmen that had been filed, and was not following the published flight guidance, the Secret Service said. The Secret Service said they'll be interviewing the pilot. The aircraft was a single-engine Cessna 172 that entered the restricted airspace with no flight plan and without communicating with air traffic control, according to the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. The Cessna was intercepted by two F-15 fighter jets and an MH-65 helicopter off the Cape May coastline, NORAD said. The plane landed at Cape May Airport at 1:11 p.m. local time. Officials at the local fire station said the Secret Service notified them around 12:48 that they would be arriving with the Bidens. Rehoboth Beach resident Susan Lillard told CBS News that she saw the small white plane flying near Cape Henlopen State Park, which is near the president's beach home. Lillard said, "Why are you telling people this? Does the Secret Service know that you're telling people that there's a state park right by the Bidens' home?" Lillard said that she saw two planes scramble into the air a few minutes later. CBS also saw those two jets flying low over the downtown area of the beach town. And, once again, I understand that the presidency doesn't, once you're the president, you're not free in many ways. You're not free to do a lot of things. I'm sure that President Trump wanted to just stay there speaking when they started to shake the fences. When they started threatening to get into the White House with him during the St. George riots. But the Secret Service told him no. Honestly, full on. I would expect that whatever cognizant member of the Biden family that was existing, because Joe isn't it, didn't really care that a small private plane was flying near their house, except for the fact that, oh, what a nuisance, we don't want plane flying over our house. That is for the common people, that is not for us. But other than that, none of this would have been a big deal, but the Secret Service, unknowing of this, made a security assessment and said the worst possible case is somebody in that plane could have a gun and, take down the most popular president in history. More votes than Barack Obama, 10 scoops of ice cream, 81 million votes, honk honk. So, that is what we see off of that. And again, you can tweet Bunker Biden, hashtag Bunker Biden, Bunker Baby Biden, to your heart's content. And your tweets will never come up and form a trend. You can make 1,000 tweets right now on your own, and it'll all just disappear. Bunker Baby Biden? No. None of that. And yet, here we are. CNN reports no threat. It's a review of the stuff we just watched, so we'll skip out of this one. So yes, no threat to the most popular president in history. Honk honk. Alright, let's get this out of the way. So we're going to be talking about Philadelphia, and we are going to be talking about Chattanooga, which both happened over the weekends. Jeff Ford tweets out moments before the shooting last night. NBC, Philadelphia, 6 ABC. Hundreds of kids running on cars, dancing on cars. The restaurants had to move their patrons inside. We were locked inside for quite some time due to all the fights around us. It appears there's no volume for this. Probably because this is a lot of language that could not appear on ABC. And I have a feeling that once we get into the article, this is going to play a lot into what we saw with this. So let's read. From 6 ABC Action News, 3 dead, 11 injured after shooting on South Street, Philadelphia. Chris Minners, a second-grade resident advisor at Girard College, is among the victims killed, officials said. From 6 ABC staff and Becca Hendrickson. Three people have died and at least 11 others are wounded in a shooting late Saturday night on Philadelphia's South Street. The gunfire erupted around 11:31 p.m. on the 400 block of South Street, a bustling section at the city's Queen Village neighborhood. Authorities say officers assigned to the 200 block of South Street heard the initial gunfire and quickly responded. Upon arrival, officers found several gunshot victims and an unknown man firing into a crowd of people, said Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw during a Sunday afternoon briefing. One officer pulled out his weapon and fired several times in the direction of the gunman. Police say the gunman fled, but it's believed that he was hit by the officer's gunfire. It went on for much longer than I thought it should go on. At that point, you question, what is that? I knew it must have been gunshots. It must have been 30 shots I heard, said resident Frank Snyder. Outlaw said the dead were a 34-year-old man, a 27-year-old woman, a 22-year-old man. Investigators believe one of the three was involved in a physical altercation with another man, and those two began firing at each other, with both struck by gunfire and one killed, Outlaw said. 2 other people killed, and a number of other shooting victims, who ranged from 17 to 69, were believed to have been innocent bystanders, Outlaw said. She called it a dark day for the city when many people out enjoying the beautiful day were victims of horrendous, unthinkable acts in a very popular local and tourist hangout. Oh, what a beautiful day! What a wonderful day in the neighborhood! Everybody's happy and peaceful. Oh, it's a beautiful day out here. It's important that we bring justice to the victims, their families, and our community, she said. Let's see. Let's listen to what Becca Hendrickson here has to say.
We are at Jefferson Hospital, where we know several of the gunshot victims from the mass shooting on South Street were taken overnight. We know that at least 14 people were hit by gunfire. 3 of them are dead, 2 men and a woman, absolutely devastating. 11 more we know suffered gunshot wounds, and several of them were taken here to Jefferson, at least 7 of them. But we do also know that Jefferson's trauma unit became so overloaded that police had to ask that no more victims be taken here, that they were taken to other hospitals. A violent night in Philadelphia that claimed the lives of at least 3 people, and there could be more victims as well. Police say the active shooter fired into a crowd. There's always a crowd on South Street. It's a really popular bar and restaurant scene. There's a lot of nightlife there, so when they fired into the crowd, a lot of people did scatter, so some people may have ran away injured. Also, police shot at one of the shooters. There were officers on patrol who witnessed the active shooter, and they began shooting at an individual. That individual ran away, so it's unknown at this time if they were injured by the gunfire too. But what we know for a fact is that 3 people are dead and at least 11 more were hit in that active shooter situation. The mass shooting on South Street, still a developing situation. We're hoping to learn more about the victims. We're hoping to learn more about those injured, how their condition is. Stick with Action News for the latest.
All right, so that's what the news media over there had to say. According to police, the woman shot was shot in the rib cage and pronounced dead at Jefferson University Hospital. The 22-year-old man was shot in the back and was later pronounced at Jefferson. The 34-year-old man was shot twice in the chest and twice in the stomach, police said. He was taken to Penn Presbyterian Hospital, where he later died. Well, and I bet that was one of the people that was involved in the shootout. According to AFT Pennsylvania, the union that represents over 36,000 educators and paraprofessionals identified Chris Minners as one of the men killed. Minners was a second-grade teacher, resident advisor rather, at Girard College, and a member of the Girard College Federation of Teachers. Our hearts are heavy today with the passing of Chris Minners, the second-grade boys resident advisor at Girard College, and a member of our union, yet another victim of senseless gun violence. Our thoughts are with Mr. Minners' family, who woke up this morning missing someone at their breakfast table, his colleagues, who will be without a friend, and with his students, who will be without a mentor and a role model, the union said in a statement. Friends and loved ones have also identified another one of the deceased as 34-year-old Greg Japan Jackson. He was an avid skater at Millennium Skate World and well known in the boxing community. Police identified the third victim as 27-year-old Alexis Quinn. At least 2 guns were recovered from the scene, and Police Inspector D.F. Pace said one of them had an extended magazine. You knew that was coming. Police believe 5 guns were used in the shootout. Numerous shell casings were found blocks from the crime scene, authorities said. In addition, police are investigating several other shootings before and afterwards, one fatal, to see whether they might be related. No arrests have been made at this time. Officers are checking surveillance video to help them identify the shooters. Police are still working to determine what led to the gunfire. I hate to say it, but I'm willing to bet it's going to be that. I'm willing to bet that that had something to do with it. All right, let's grab one from CNN. This looks to be mostly a review of what they said here, but we can hear a statement from the officer on the scene. Let's listen.
Following developing news, another mass shooting in the United States, this time in Philadelphia, where 3 people are dead, at least 11 others injured.
CNN's Evan McMorris-Santoro is with us now. Evan, what are you hearing about this?
Well, Bars and Christie, as you say, this is a developing story. There's a lot still going on. There's a lot that we don't know yet, but there's one thing that we definitely do know. This is another normal moment in America, in this case, a beautiful Saturday night in the entertainment district of a major American city, destroyed by death and gunfire because of one of these mass shootings. Now, police say 2 men and 1 woman were killed and 11 others.
Normal night in American nightlife. Just fine. That's a normal night right there, huh? Yeah. Normal night in American nightlife. Do you see that all the time when you go out for a drink with friends?
others taken to hospitals with injuries after multiple shooters fired into a crowd in this entertainment district in Philadelphia. According to the Gun Violence Archive, which is a nonprofit group that tracks this kind of thing, this is the 6th mass shooting just this weekend, which they define as 4 or more people injured or killed, not including the shooter. This one in Philadelphia, police were right there on the scene. It is a busy area of the city, and at a press conference around 2 a.m. last night, the police described what happened.
He was within about 10 to 15 yards of the shooter, watching this person shoot into the crowd when the officer engaged that shooter. You can imagine there were hundreds of individuals just enjoying South Street, as they do every single weekend, when this shooting broke out.
Now, as I mentioned, this is not the only mass shooting this weekend. It's also not the only gun violence incident in Philadelphia this weekend. This is another incident where, it's hard to put these shootings together sometimes to figure out what to do, what to think about them. But in the case of this one, police say early investigations show that there was an extended magazine used, which is one of those things that President Biden talked about last week as trying to ban to try to prevent some of this gun violence. But in Philadelphia, we're going to learn a lot more as we go on throughout the day, finding out the details of this latest tragedy in the United States.
Let's talk about prices.
Let's shut that person up here. So, again, this is just your normal nightlife, guys. A normal night in America, rocked by gun violence. Your normal night, right here. All right, so that is Philadelphia. Let's go look at Chattanooga. From News 9, ABC, 13 dead after shooting your downtown Chattanooga bar. We will come back to this in just a second. Let's look at some of these updates, because this looks like it's a live blog. But we can also look at the ABC News here. All right, update, 2:30 p.m. update. Chattanooga Police is beginning to reopen portions of McAley Avenue. We have a crew at the scene. Breaking, CPD confirms 3 dead at McAley Avenue shooting, 17 injured in total, 3 were hit by vehicles. Update, CPD is beginning to reopen portions of McAley Avenue. I'm on scene with Jamia Reed TV. We'll provide you updates as we learn more. Tim Kelly and Chief Murphy held a press conference. Our city will put a stop to this. We have his full statement here. So let's not look at the live blog here. Let's actually look at the story from ABC. 3 dead, 14 shot in mass shooting at Chattanooga, Tennessee. From Jesse DiMartino and William Manschel. At least 3 people are dead and 14 shot at following a shooting outside a nightclub in Chattanooga, Tennessee overnight, which is the 2nd mass shooting in the city in the last week. I don't remember what the other one, well, obviously they didn't televise it because there probably were details that didn't fit their narrative. 2 people died from gunshot wounds and a 3rd died after being hit by a car. According to the Chattanooga Police Chief Celeste Murphy, 3 other people were injured by vehicles fleeing the scene. The chief told reporters that the shooting was an isolated incident and said there were likely multiple shooters. Murphy said the circumstances of the shooting are still unknown and appealed to the public's help for information. Regardless of how small and insignificant you may think it is, please reach out to us, she said. The identities of the victims and suspects have not been released. Last week, 6 teenagers were shot in downtown Chattanooga in a confrontation between 2 large groups. No arrests have been made in this shooting as well. Was that only last week? I think that was a couple weeks ago, wasn't it? I remember we talked about Chattanooga recently, but I thought that was a couple more weeks ago than just this. Although, it has only been 3 weeks since Buffalo, so... But we got some video from this.
But first, we will begin with Sam Pena, who has been following this investigation throughout the night. He's live right now at Macaulay Avenue. So, Sam, What have you learned?
Yeah, Christy, the shooting happened here on Macaulay Avenue, right here in front of Mary's Bar and Grill. So far, the heartbreaking scene has left 17 people injured. You can already see people in the community have come out. They've started to leave flowers out here for those who were injured in this devastating attack that also left 3 people dead. And today, we were out here all morning and afternoon learning the details of the tragic attack. Dozens of shots heard on camera from a shooting that left 3 dead in downtown Chattanooga.
I think they said they had a party in their car shot.
It happened here on Macaulay Avenue in front of Mary's Bar and Grill after 14 people were shot and another 3 were injured by cars fleeing the scene.
3 fatalities have been confirmed, 2 of which are related to gunshot wounds and 1 of which is related to injuries sustained after being struck by a vehicle.
CPD Chief Celeste Murphy says multiple shooters were involved with a variety of guns, but no suspects have been identified.
We ask that anyone with information related to the incident, regardless of how small and insignificant you may think that it is, to please reach out to us.
Several victims left in critical condition, one of them a child, fueling growing concerns in Chattanooga after another shooting last weekend in downtown injured 6 teenagers.
Chattanooga will not tolerate this in our community. Our city will put a stop to this.
At a second presser, Mayor Kelly says federal authorities are now involved in the investigation, and he called for new federal gun restrictions.
Mandatory background checks and prohibiting high-capacity magazines that allow shooters to hurt dozens of people.
Their assistance after an all-time high 164 shootings last year in Chattanooga. That number was in decline with only 30 shootings year to date until the recent mass violence, making it the city's #1 priority.
Chattanooga will treat this like the crisis that it is.
Police are still here on scene investigating the shooting that happened, but Macaulay is opened right now. If you were out here, go.
So there is that statement from the mayor, some details on what happened with that, and of course now opening up the road, you can drive down Macaulay again. Aren't you excited for that? Go drive down the road where all this happened? All right. I debated whether or not to put this one in here. A, it's the Daily Beast, which is not a NewsGuard verified source. B, I'm pretty positive this is a lie because it's a Republican and it's coming from the Daily Beast. But Blake Masters blames gun violence on black people, frankly. From Roger Sullenberger. And this, I could not find anything about this on a green check verified source. So I'm going to go into this. We're going to look at this, but I'm going to say dubious at best that he actually said this. Tech investor and Arizona Republican Senate hopeful Blake Masters acknowledges that the U.S. has a gun problem, frankly, but he also has a theory about why it's a problem. It's black people, frankly, I quote, "Don't ban me, Susan." Masters boiled the issue down in an April 11th interview on the Jeff Oravitz Show podcast, telling the host that we do have a gun violence problem in this country, and it's gang violence. It's people in Chicago, St. Louis, shooting each other very often, black people, frankly, Masters clarified, and the Democrats don't want to do anything about it. It's unclear why Masters, who has pushed the baseless great replacement conspiracy theory narrative, felt compelled to single out black people moments earlier in the interview during a discussion about Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation hearings. Masters told Oravitz that most Americans just want to stop obsessing about race all the time, adding that the left's biggest tool in their toolkit is just to divide people on the basis of race, and that's really messed up. Republicans frequently cite urban gang violence, most often in Chicago, in attempts to tap out the gun control debate. While their redirections are often misleading, as they are cliche, the officials aren't always as forthright as Masters about the racial undertones. Well, that's because it's just as likely to be a cracker gangbanger in Chicago as it is a black gangbanger. With the exception of the volume, of course. There's more of one than there is of the other. But Masters, whom the white nationalist website Vidare feted last year as an immigration patriot, was quite clear about his vision of two Americas. After pitting gun violence on gangs and black people and saying falsely that Democrat admins don't want to do anything about gang shootings, the Stanford-educated libertarian went on to complain to Orovitz that gun control efforts target law-abiding people like you and me. And at that point, he is correct on that. It's going after the law-abiding, and the people who aren't law-abiding are still going to have the guns. I love a lot of people who like to say, well, the gun violence, the gun problem isn't happening in Chicago. It's because they're right next to Wisconsin and Indiana. Therefore, we need expanded background checks to make sure that the people in Wisconsin and Indiana aren't selling to the Chicago people. Look. If somebody comes up to me as an out-of-state resident to go and buy a gun from me, and they come up in Illinois plates, I'm not going to sell it to them. And the person that is going to sell to him is already breaking the law by selling a firearm to an out-of-state resident without transferring it through an FFL dealer. They're already breaking federal law. So if we expand the background checks to include all private sales, please explain to me why this person is going to go, knowingly breaking the law already, why this person is going to go to the FFL dealer and seek out a background check. That's the one nobody can explain to me. And number two, that's not the flex that you think it is. All the guns are coming from Wisconsin and Indiana. Yeah, that's because people who want to commit harm at a great volume are going to find a way to do it. No matter what the laws are. So, that's what they had to say about that. Again, I have a feeling that if this was authentic, that CNN would be all over this. But the only place that I could find it is non-Green Check verified Daily Beast. So take this for what it's worth, and it's not really worth a whole hell of a lot. I'm going to call this one a hoax right off the bat, just off the headline. I mean, we'll talk about it, but I'm going to say hoax. Retired officer arrested outside U.S. Capitol with body armor, ammo, and fake Interpol badge. Jerome Felipe of Flint was taken into custody by Capitol Police in Washington, D.C. around 5 a.m. after he parked his 2017 Charger near the building. And he's probably living in Salt Lake City right now with a new set of fingerprints and a new social security number. And a new name. From Minivan Burke and Tom Winter. A retired New York police officer was arrested outside the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. on Friday morning after he was found with a fake badge, body armor, a BB gun, and ammunition that included high-capacity magazines. Jerome Felipe of Flint was taken into custody by U.S. Capitol Police around 5 a.m. after he parked his 2017 Challenger near the building, according to a USCP news release. Felipe is facing charges for unlawful possession of a high-capacity magazine and unregistered ammunition. It's not clear why he was parked near the Capitol. He was parked there to get caught. A USCP officer started talking to Felipe, who presented the officer with a fake badge that had Department of the Interpol printed on it. Felipe also made a statement that he was a criminal investigator with the agency, the news release states. Felipe, 53, allowed officers to search his vehicle. Oh, he allowed officers to search his vehicle, where he knowingly had ammunition and high-capacity magazines, both of which are highly regulated in the District of Columbia proper, and even more regulated around the Capitol complex. And yet he just happened to allow Capitol Police to search his vehicle and find body armor, not allowed in the District of Columbia. High-capacity magazine and ammunition, not allowed in the District of Columbia. Unregistered. Oh, he just happened to let them search it. There was a BB gun, 2 ballistic vests, several high-capacity magazines, and other ammunition in the car, authorities said. No real firearms were found. Oh! This is such a hoax. This is such an obvious one. A senior New York City law enforcement official told NBC News that Felipe is a former NYPD officer who left the department in 2018 as he faced departmental charges. The charges were allegations he misrepresented himself in official proceedings as a detective when his actual rank was police officer, the law enforcement official says. Yeah, none of this one. Nothing here I believe. I don't buy a word of this one. Oh, a former police officer who had been in trouble before. Just had a BB gun, didn't have an actual firearm, but had an arsenal's worth of high-capacity magazines and ammunition and body armor. Bullshit. And yes, of course, the fact that he was in I think he was a Challenger, not a Charger. Yeah, it was a Challenger, not a Charger. But that's what they're trying to make us believe. Now, in the midst of what we just saw in Philadelphia, Chattanooga, and here in D.C., Buyer to propose 1,000% tax on assault-style weapons. Let's do some research, shall we? Because I want to see exactly how much our elite betters believe that only the rich should be able to defend themselves properly against the government. Which they're not going to defend themselves against the government. They're going to defend themselves against the unwashed masses. So let's oops. Cursor in the right window. No, I don't want the lawsuit. I want the website. No, let's see. Let's see if we can find an AR-style rifle on Gun Broker. Wow, they're actually really cheap. Well, starting bids or buy nows on Gun Broker. Maybe I shouldn't use that as an example. Let's go back to the Daniel defense, because I think most of these are going to be used anyway. Yeah, they have to get a statement. We're deeply saddened. Okay, so this is your DDM-4B7, the one that the Uvalde jackoff used. So let's grab the calculator. So 1,000% would be, 100% would be 2. I believe that would be 10 times. $11 times, I'm sorry. 11 times the value of this, so. No, 10, because it'll be on top of the sale price. So, I mean, this will be pretty easy, but we'll go 1870 times 10. That'll be your tax, is 18,700. Plus 1870, the initial, whoops. Minus 1870. God damn it. So 1870 times 10 for the tax plus the initial 1870 is that turns, and I mean this is just what the government's going to take up off the top of it. That turns just your regular semi-automatic rifle with a couple little cosmetics on the end of it into a $20,000 investment. And if you should manage to pull that kind of money together, then the vast majority of that goes to the government. Nope. We ain't doing that shit, homie. That is shit that ain't happening. All right, but let's read from Monique Beals. Don Beyer is drafting legislation to impose a hefty tax on the assault weapons in the wake of the recent mass shootings across the U.S. Beyer's office told The Hill that the proposal was a workaround to avoid GOP opposition to legislation outright banning high-capacity weapons. No, it's to make sure that your rich, big business buddies are the only ones who are allowed. We must defend ourselves and our families against the unwanted masses. The unwanted masses, if you want your firearms, then you can have the used lot that is out there. You can have your bolt action, your revolver. Only we, Thurston Howell, the 17th, are the ones who can afford to defend ourselves properly against you, the unwashed masses. Congressman Beyer is seeing action to prevent gun violence obstructed by Senate Republicans using the filibuster after horrific mass shootings. For years, the legislation represents an effort to put a new option on the table for those who believe that gun safety reforms are urgently needed to save lives, Beyer's Deputy Chief of Staff Aaron Fritchner said in an email. Beyer's proposal would tax the AR-15 model weapons and other firearms considered assault weapons, according to terms set out in a separate bill from David Cicilline of Rhode Island, Beyer's office told The Hill. The act defines such firearms as military-style assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines, according to a press release from Cicilline at the time of its introduction in March of last year. Instead of completely banning assault weapons, Beyer's proposal would impose a 1,000% tax on the weapons for manufacturers, producers, and importers, which will get passed along to the customers. The bill would exempt government entities. Oh, the government would be exempt from this. So they can use this weapon to oppress you, but you can't have the same one without paying the government an exorbitant fee to go back and use it back against them. Like federal, state, and local levels, as well as the military. The price for the new AR-style guns range from $500 to more than $2,000, according to NBC. As such, a 1,000% tax would increase the price of those weapons from anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. No! Let me make myself perfectly clear. No! Gun control legislation would have to meet a 60-vote threshold to overcome a filibuster in the Senate, making its passage highly unlikely, even if all 50 Democrats are united. However, a tax would be more likely to be allowed to move through the budget reconciliation, which would only require 50 votes to pass. No! Taxes get more deference in budget reconciliation than other policies from the parliamentarian point of view, Zach Mueller, director of the Third Way's economic program, told Business Insider. Beyer's proposal comes after a series of high-profile mass shootings in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde. Texas and Tulsa have moved gun control to the top of Democrats' agenda. It's because everything else they've done has failed. However, Democrat leaders have also been cautious about forcing members to take tough votes ahead of crucial midterm elections. I want everybody in this audience to know and to tell everybody else that you know. This is point proof clear that the Democrats have become the party of the rich. They don't care if these guns are out there, which are going to find their ways into the hands of people that are not supposed to have them and can't technically afford them anyway. This is Democrats saying only rich people get to defend themselves. This is it, right here. A number of gun reforms being discussed are broadly popular with the public. A recent survey from Morning Consult and Politico showing that 88% of all respondents supported a background check requirement on all gun sales. Yeah, that's a registry, just so you know. Earlier this week, Pelosi said that the House Democrats would soon consider legislation banning military-style assault weapons, marking Congress's most aggressive response to date on gun control. So, there you go. 1,000% tax. This thread, which is cancer, by the way, and people try to say, oh, Ted Cruz is like the grandpa in the Munsters. But this cancer thread here, Major General retired Paul Eaton. As the former commanding general of the Infantry Center at Fort Benning and Chief of Infantry, I know a bit about weapons. Let me state unequivocally, for all intents and purposes, the AR-15 and rifles like it are weapons of war at thread. No, they're not. Those opposed to assault weapons bans continue to play games with the AR semantics, pretending there's some meaningful differences between it and the M4 carbine and that the military carries. There really aren't. I don't know, Major General Paul Eaton. If I try to have something with select fire, to be able to stand toe-to-toe with a person that you're going to send to me to submit to the government who will have a select fire rifle, you will put me in jail. Well, actually, you'll put me in the ground, but... The military began a transition from the M16 to the M4, an improved M16 some years ago. The AR-15 is essentially the civilian version of the M16. The M4 is really close to the M16, and the AR-15... No, they are not. So what's the difference between the military's M4 and the original AR-15 barrel length, and the ability to shoot 3-round bursts? M4s can shoot in 3-round bursts, AR-15s can only shoot a single shot. That is quite the difference. That is a fantastical difference, and you know that too, by the way. And barrel length, I mean, that's the other thing. Oh, whoa. You have to have 1,000% tax and a tax stamp and fingerprints and the FBI if you want to have a short-barreled rifle. But even now, you can buy AR-15s in variable barrel lengths with Weaver Picatinny rails for better sights and aiming assists like lasers, like the military but without the bayonets. But our troops usually use a single shot, not burst fire. You're able to fire a much more accurate, deadly shot. That way, note, you can buy our Advanced Combat Optical Gun Sight on Amazon, so troops usually suggest the same fire option available on the AR-15. So, it's still not a military weapon. That's why the AR-15 is accurately called a weapon of war, even though it's never seen the battlefield. It's a very deadly weapon with the same basic functionality of our troops use to kill the enemy. I wish it was functionally the same as what your troops use to kill the enemy, so that when I become the enemy, I at least have a standing shot. And again, I fully understand the fact that when the military comes for me, when the government comes for me, and it's inevitable at this point, I mean, that right there makes it inevitable. When the military comes for me, I am probably not going to walk away from that engagement. My only hope and dream is that I take a few of them with me when I go. But yes, when you send your government lackeys after me, I am probably going to die, and I understand that. But I would much rather do it on my feet, shooting back, than on my knees. Don't take the bait when anti-gun safety folks argue about it. They know it's true, now you do too. I wish I could have something on par with what you had. So there's your daily dose of cancer. And if that wasn't bad enough, Mehdi Hassan and whatever this crazy-ass white-haired economist is, has something to tell you about what the Second Amendment really is. Let's listen.
In your book, Ali, you argue that an individual right to self-defense with a gun was not provided by the Second Amendment, but by the conservative Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment in its Heller decision. You also say, quote, there was an original purpose to the Second Amendment, but it wasn't to keep people safe. It was to preserve white supremacy and slavery. Briefly, Ellie, how do we know that to be the case for sure?
Yeah, so I'm coming up with that just because I'm reading Patrick Henry and George Mason, who was then governor of Virginia at the founding of the country. This is not my words. This is what those white guys said when they were debating the Second Amendment. They said that they needed a Second Amendment because they needed the armed, disciplined, that was their word, militia to put down slave revolts. And they were worried that under the original Constitution, the federal government had all of the power to raise the militia, right? The Southerners needed the militias to put down slave revolts because, you know, Mendy, it's a little bit difficult to hold people in bondage against their will. So you needed some military superiority, and the Second Amendment was there to make sure that the states had the power to raise the militia on their own. So Virginia could raise its own militia to put down slave revolts in Virginia without having to ask Connecticut or Massachusetts whether or not they agreed with that. That's why it's there. That's why the white folks said it was there. Fast forward to 2008, and Antonin Scalia just makes up an entirely different Second Amendment right out of thin air.
They really, the way that they run this too, my biggest fear is that people like Ellie and NYC actually believe this crap. I'm trying. I know we're trying to compete with the AM radio. I'm trying. I really am. They believe this, and they push it. Well, the Second Amendment is just because they want their slaves back. No. That's not what any of this is about. This is so, again, when the government comes to beat down my door for speaking out against them, then I can at least take a couple of them with me. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from our friends over at NPR. Uvalde parents and school staffers start legal action against gunmaker. And remember, Daniel Defense is evil, and we can only tell you how evil they are every day if you hit that donate button, because NPR needs our money, comrade, not your money. It's our money, comrade, to make sure that we can continue to tell you that anybody who wants to own a firearm just wants to put people back into enslavement. They want to take over and enslave everybody. And the only thing standing between you and them is the good and benevolent federal government. And if you give us our money, comrade, then we can continue to tell you why you should only like one side and not the other. This is Never Printing Reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. The parents of one of the 19 children killed during the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, and Robb Elementary School staffer who fled from the gunman and hid in the school have taken the first steps towards suing the gunmaker that produced the AR-style rifle used in the massacre. There is no way that they're standing for this. My purpose is for being now is to honor Amory Joe's memory, said Alfred Garza III, the father of a 10-year-old who called 911 from inside her classroom before being shot. She would want me to do everything I can so this will never happen again to any other child. I have to fight her fight. Through attorneys, Garza sent a letter to Daniel Defense stating his intentions to investigate the claims against the gunmaker and issuing a notice to preserve all potentially relevant documents. Attorneys for Kimberly Garcia, the girl's mother, sent a similar letter to the company. In court documents filed on Thursday, the Texas's 38th Judicial District, Robb Elementary School speech pathology clerk Amy Marin petitioned the court to force company officials to sit for a deposition and to produce materials related to the gunmaker's website, profits, lobbying sales, and marketing of the AR-style rifle like the one used for the shooting. These are the first legal actions taken as a result of the mass shooting, which killed 19 children and 2 adults. While not full-blown lawsuits, the filings seek to determine if the gun manufacturing can be sued for how it promotes firearms. They're marketing to people who it's not really reasonable should have guns, and we think that may be young people, said Don Flannery, Marin's attorney. The gunman was 18 and legally purchased the weapons and ammunition used in the killing. In Texas, both parties can begin collecting evidence before bringing the lawsuit under Rule 202. The filing, called a pre-suit deposition, can be used to compel testimony that will be used in an anticipated lawsuit or to investigate a potential claim or suit. Look, my biggest problem with this, of course, has never been the fact that he used the style rifle, and the fact that people are going to go back out and try to sue this manufacturer. My biggest problem is that a lot of this doesn't add up, still to this day. To this day, a lot of this doesn't add up. A burger flipper at Wendy's, who was bullied for being poor, went out and bought a $2,000 rifle, 2 $2,000 rifles, $1,000 worth of ammunition, and a $600 gun sight. No. And was able to get the credit financing to do it. Because he bought it on credit. On his 18th birthday. With an income that doesn't reflect the ability to pay that loan back. No. This doesn't math. And now, we have an independent armament maker that's not one of the big boys. A very expensive one, but an independent one all the same. Out of a red state that is suddenly on the lawsuit block? No, none of this makes any sense, and you know it just as well as I do. And that is outside of the fact that there's no standing. The gun did not malfunction in any way. Oh, well, it's because of the advertising. That's what we're doing here. It's because of the advertising. Yes, do come out here and buy this rifle you can't afford. Be in debt to the rest of your life, and if you fail, we'll come back and repossess that said rifle. All right. And outside of the country, before we get into some other things here, mass shooting at Nigeria church kills dozens, says local lawmaker. From Nimi Pritzwell. Yeah, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. And it was the same one for Buffalo. A church in southwestern Nigeria became the site of a bloody attack on Sunday, according to local lawmakers. Attackers stormed into the church in the city of Owo and began shooting sporadically. Adeyemi Olayemi, the legislator representing the Owo constituency in the Ondo State House of Assembly, told CNN at least 28 people were killed, Olayemi said. The attackers came in motorcycles and started shooting sporadically. He said they killed many people inside the church. Victims are being taken to a federal medical center in Owo. Olayemi says state police could not confirm the number of casualties at St. Francis Catholic Church. A police spokesperson told CNN, nor could they identify those behind the attacks. Ondo State Governor Arakunrin Akaredolu said that he was shocked by the attack and called it a Black Sunday in Owo. I am deeply saddened by the unprovoked attack and killing of 2 innocent people in Owo, worshipping at the St. Francis Catholic Church today, he said on Twitter, adding that the violent satanic attack is calculated assault on the peace-loving people of Owo Kingdom, who have enjoyed relative peace over the years. The governor vowed to commit every available resource to hunt down these assailants and make them pay. We shall never bow to the machinations of heartless elements in our resolves to rid our state of criminals, he continued, asking the public not to take the law into your own hands. Yeah, I bet 30 people in that church wish they could have taken the law into their own hands. Lethal attacks by motorbike riding gangs are rare in southwest Nigeria, but such attacks are more widespread in swaths of the country's north, which is constantly under siege by Boko Haram terrorists and marauding gunmen, locally known as bandits. Well, I guess the bandits got bored or ran out of money where they were already raiding, so... Let's see. Let's talk Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse's lawyer looks to target Facebook in defamation lawsuit. From Matt Christie. Saying he was inspired by Johnny Depp, Kyle Rittenhouse is moving ahead with his own defamation lawsuits, with his lawyer already singling out a social media giant as one of the many intended targets. Rittenhouse announced on Twitter Friday that he was working with Todd McMurtry, the lawyer who represented Nicholas Sandmann in his defamation case against the Washington Post, after a video went viral involving Sandmann and a Native American activist. Along with the Washington Post, McMurtry has reached settlements with media companies NBC Universal and CNN. McMurtry spoke with Fox News recently, where he stated Rittenhouse's legal team was preparing for at least 10 defamation suits against prominent figures and companies for comments made about Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse was acquitted last year of all charges in a shooting that killed 2 people and wounded another during a protest in Kenosha. McMurtry went on to tell Fox Digital in a phone interview that he'd been hired by Rittenhouse to determine whom to sue, when to sue, and where to sue, and said that they probably had 10 or 15 solid cases against large defendants. We're going to look at everything that's been said, determine which of those comments are legally actionable, and proceed from there, McMurtry told Fox News Digital. Taking to Twitter in the wake of the Johnny Depp defamation verdict against his ex-wife, Amber Heard, Rittenhouse made statements on Wednesday that credited Depp as an inspiration in his push to pursue defamation lawsuits. Johnny Depp trial is just fueling me, he tweeted. You can fight back against the lies in the media, and you should. Though McMurtry told Fox News the legal process for potential defamation cases is only just beginning, the lawyer did single out Zuckerberg and Facebook as targets, stating Zuckerberg was certainly going to be at the top of our list when examining potential defamations. One of the things with this, and a part of this is the social media companies putting their finger on the scale, is the fact that, yeah, if you espouse certain ideologies or don't espouse certain ideologies, the media is stacked against you. I have not even tried to post on Facebook. I stopped going on there under a deep state of depression before I started my YouTube channel. And I've posted on there on my personal page a handful of times. Now, of course, one of the places you can watch this is over on Facebook at facebook.com/EdsWorld101. The Facebook page for this channel. We do transmit over there. I'm on there right now. But as far as my personal page, no. It's just I don't post on there, number one. And most of what I post would get deleted. And B, honestly, most of the people on there, my high school friends, with the exception of a few really awesome people, was just, I mean, it's not the crowd that I want to interact with. I would rather interact with more like-minded people. I check it every once in a while for notifications, but there really isn't anything there. I've been invited to my 20-year reunion page, and it expired both times, so I didn't follow up on it. I'm probably not going to go anyway. Let's just use for an example what Facebook and Zuckerberg said about Rittenhouse, McMurtry said to Fox News Digital. They said that he was involved with a mass murder incident. This was not a mass murder incident. It was clearly factually false. To call someone a mass murderer is seriously defamatory, and then to use the power of social media to basically censor any views that would take opposition to the mass murderer statement is a serious effort to destroy his character. Yeah, I think we're going to be talking, we'll circle back to this when we talk about Elon a little bit later down the article too. But yeah, if they want to come back out and try to make this work, just do remember that Zuckerberg has the government backing him and very, very deep pockets outside. So I hope you win. I really do. And I think there's a potential for you to do. I just think it's going to be an uphill battle to get there. I was going to show you the tweet that Taylor Lorenz put out about the article that we're about to look at here. But, yeah, her account is locked down. Again. Because she was facing so much backlash for all the stupidity that she has to write from the Washington Post. Who won the Depp Heard trial? Content creators that went all in. An analysis from Taylor Lorenz. Archived, of course. Editor's note, the first published version of the story incorrectly stated the internet influencers Alit Mazika and That Umbrella Guy have been contacted for comment before publication. In fact, Mazika was asked by Instagram, and after the story was published, the post continued to seek comment from Mazika via social media and queried That Umbrella Guy for the first time. During that process, the post removed the incorrect statement from the story, but did not note its removal, a violation of our corrections policy. The story has been updated to that note that Mazika declined to comment for the story, and That Umbrella Guy could not be reached for comment. And if we do want to, we can go back and look through the history of all the snapshots of the story from its publication to now, before they made the correction out of it. In fact, we're actually going to do that. Going back and looking at the initial one. When the verdict came down in the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard trial Wednesday afternoon, thousands of online influencers scrambled to respond. Twitch streamers reacted to their news in real time. YouTubers posted analysis videos. Instagram meme accounts joked and celebrated Depp's win. TikTokers broke down the most meaningful moments from the decision. The video and memes were just the latest in a tidal wave of content about the trial that dominated the internet for much of the past 2 months. Yeah, we didn't cover that here until the verdict. The trial offered a glimpse into a potential future media ecosystem where content creators serve as personalities breaking news to an increasing number of viewers, and in turn define the online narrative around major events. Those creators can also bring in major personal profits. In the process, in this new landscape, every big news event becomes an opportunity to amass followers, money, and clout. The Depp Heard trial showed the creator-driven news ecosystem can influence public opinion based on platform incentives. Nearly every large breaking news event in the past year has birthed a new crop of online influencers. As the coronavirus began its deadly spread across the country, people turned to large health-focused influencers to make sense of it, often falling for dangerous misinformation. When Russia invaded Ukraine, war pages proliferated, with their creators earning thousands by selling merchandise and posting OnlyFans ads. As waves of anti-LGBTQIRAIMAGIXTIAXTYBLAPIRTNGY Legislation flourished in recent months. Popular. You get the picture. Streamers and TikTokers received major boosts in their attention. When the Depp-Heard trial began gaining traction online in April, internet users around the world recognized a fresh opportunity to seize and monetize the attention. Christopher Orrick, a 20-year-old content creator in LA, has posted a dozen videos about the trial to his more than 1.4 million followers on Instagram across several pages. Personally, what I've gained from it is money as well as exposure from how well the videos do, he said. You can go from being a kid in high school and, if you hop on it early, you can basically change your life, Orrick said. You can use those views and likes and shares that you get from it to monetize, build your account, and make more money from it. Meet more people and network. Content creator Alit Mazika earned $5,000 in 1 week by pivoting the content on her YouTube channel to nonstop trial coverage and analysis, according to Business Insider. That Umbrella Guy, an anonymous YouTuber whose entire channel is dedicated to pro-Depp content, earned up to $80,000 last month, according to an estimate by social analytics from Social Blade. Mazika and That Umbrella Guy did not respond to requests for comment. It's because you hadn't requested yet. Orrick said he earned over $5,400 last month on Instagram Reels bonus payments. When large creators saw the attention relative unknowns were receiving, many fully pivoted their content to covering the trial. Makeup artists, meme accounts, comedians, lifestyle influencers, K-pop fans, movie reviewers, true crime podcasters, real estate influencers. Suddenly the Depp trial was their primary focus. Content produced by social media influencers skewed heavily pro-Depp, with economic bias playing a big role. Johnny content performed a lot better, said Rowan Winch, a 17-year-old content creator. When people do post stuff trying to defend Heard, they will lose followers. A lot of major content creators probably don't even care about it that much. They just care about the views that it gets. Translation through all of this. The unprofessional people that didn't go to college are doing better than I am. And that's really what this boils down to. Now, again, on top of this is also Taylor Lorenz trying to smear people and saying, well, they're just grifting. They're just going on to the flavor of the month because they want to come back out here. But really, honestly, the full nine of this entire article is the fact that Taylor Lorenz can't stand the fact that people like you watch people like me. That we're setting the narrative. Not people like her who went to school for 4 years to learn what the proper narrative was and how to set it. And Taylor Lorenz can't stand that. And like I said, I didn't sell out and do the Johnny Depp thing because it really didn't interest me. Going against the U.S. government was more interesting to me than the Depp-Heard trial. That was way more interesting to me. But even still, I took some time and talked about the verdict at the end. All right, what else? We've got some AOC news. Back-to-back surprise stupidity. From the Hill. AOC. Puppy, it's becoming increasingly difficult for people to defend the stance, okay, that we live in a democracy. And a true one. Well, the real truth of the matter is we're living in an oligarchy that has democratic moments, okay, puppy? Let's listen.
And it also cuts to the basic structure of our democracy, if you can call it that. Because when you have a presidency that's not determined by a popular vote, when you have a Senate where tens of millions of people more can vote for one candidate, one party, and still be in the minority, where even in the House of Representatives that's supposed to represent our population, that it gets gerrymandered to all hell once every 10 years in order to ensure an outsized minority rule and voice in both the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It is becoming increasingly difficult for people to defend the stance that we live in a democracy, in a true one. And what the real truth of the matter is when you look at the fact that our elections are bought, that corporations have, and lobbies, powerful corporate lobbies, have more say in our legislation than everyday people, we are living in oligarchy that has its democratic moments.
Well, one of the first things to that is, well, let's remember that we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic where there were counters to put in to, A, make sure that there was a majority rule, but there was still a protection for the minority to make sure that the majority couldn't trample onto their rights with a 50+1 vote. That's what you seem to forget. That's the point of the Senate. Except for the fact that it's standing in the way of your agenda. That's part of this here. Sorry, I had to go back and comment on what you guys are commenting on over there. But it's... this person who's taken an oath to the Constitution doesn't know how the Constitution works and just wants the power. And that's where a lot of this comes from, is the power. And I hate it when Republicans do it. I hate it when Democrats do it. I hate it when stupid people like this do it. But no, there is a reason for that this is done this way. And a person like this is just... and it's gerrymandered to all hell, okay, puppy? That's the other stupid aspect of this is... number one, when we look at the big gerrymanderings, we see it in major blue states. It does it in red states too, but it's majorly done in major blue states. That joke of a district in Illinois that goes from basically St. Louis... grabs Springfield, and it just has a tiny little swath of land that comes back up around. Yeah, that was all done by Chicago Democrats in Springfield. But she didn't go far enough on this one. From the New York Post. AOC says she's had an awakening about her indigenous heritage at Standing Rock in 2016. Okay, Cortez... I'm going to stop you right here, although it's too late, she's already done this, and just remind you that this did not turn out well for Warren when she tried this. She's gone from woke to awakened. Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez claims she's experienced awakening and got in touch with her indigenous ancestry in 2016 while demonstrating against the Dakota Access Pipeline at Standing Rock Indian Reservation. No, she didn't. She's coming up here to try to win Oppression Olympics points right now because their party is losing hard. Otherwise, this would have come up in 2018 when she went for her first run. During a lengthy Instagram story Q&A session Saturday, the left-wing lawmaker spoke for roughly 3 minutes about people native to the Caribbean, known as the Taino, and the Americas, stressing that many Taino were still alive and have not been entirely wiped out by European colonization. I really feel you, okay, puppy, and understand you on this, Chavez said in the video in response to an unnamed self-identified Boricua or Puerto Rican Bronx resident who said that they want to learn more about their Taino ancestral traditions. In fact, okay, I feel like one of the things that I first started awakening and connecting me deeply to my indigenous heritage was connecting with the Lakota Sioux at Standing Rock. Chavez, who represented parts of the Bronx and Queens since 2019, expressed gratitude towards various indigenous people for welcoming her when she protested against the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline in North America. When I was at Standing Rock, surrounded by Native people, Lakota, Sioux, Cherokee, all people coming together, I looked around and it really just clicked on me, okay, puppy? That this is us, and the grace that they extended to say, no, you are a relative, was really formative for me, she recalled. Well, don't forget that you also have native Spain influence in your bloodline. And it's important for us to recognize that we are raised and we're told growing up that we were extinct and that Taino doesn't exist. It's really important for Puerto Ricans to understand that the narrative is being challenged right now, okay, puppy? Chavez, a darling of the left since she ousted moderate Joe Crowley in the 2018 Democrat primary for 14th Congressional District, emphasized the staying power of the Taino people. Our creation story still exists, our words still exist, our mythology still exists, okay, puppy? You may even engage in Taino practices now, she said, referencing plant-based medicine. Chavez cited the Taino word huracan, meaning god of the storm. Don't do this. Now, you actually might have a claim because of the tinge of your skin, but this did not work out well for Warren. As an example of culture creation that impacted the entire English and Spanish-speaking world by creating the word hurricane. It's because they didn't have a whole hell of a lot of them in Europe at the time. But, yeah, she's going to try to jump onto this one, isn't she? So, this is a tweet thread from a person that I am in a different Discord with, talking about a bill that doesn't say what they say it says. Sam Squid says it's always a lie every time, with a screenshot saying 08-1-80. Remember that bill that proposed kids to show their genitals in schools in order to see if they're transitioning? That was not proposed by teachers, but by liberals/conservatives. Sam Squid replies in the screenshot, somehow I have a feeling you're ignorant or lying about the supposed bill, so why don't you find me the official legislative text you're referring to, and then we can discuss it, whether it is or isn't reasonable. Squid gives us the link for the bill, legislator.ohio.gov legislation, which I will put into the chat for you guys, but he's also screenshotted a specific passage of this that he wants to focus on in the genital inspection side of this. So let me put this in the chat for you. But then let's go look over at the selection. Here's the exact language of the bill. Section 3313, subsection 5318. A. Each school that participates in athletic competition or events administered by an organization that regulates interscholastic athletic conference or events shall designate interscholastic athletic teams based on the sex of the participants as follows. Paragraph 1. Separate teams for the participants of the same female sex within the female sports division. Paragraph 2. Separate teams for participants of the male sex within male sports divisions. Subparagraph 3. If applicable, co-ed teams for participants of the female and male sexes within the co-ed sports divisions. Subsection B. No school, interscholastic conference, or organization that regulates interscholastic athletics shall permit individuals of the male sex to participate on the athletic teams or in the athletic competitions designated only for participants of the female sex. Paragraph C. If a participant's sex is disputed, the participant shall establish that the participant's sex is by presenting a signed physician statement indicating the participant's sex based upon only the following. Subparagraph 1, the participant's internal and external reproductive anatomy. Subparagraph 2, the participant's normal endogenously produced levels of testosterone. Or subparagraph 3, an analysis of the participant's genetic makeup. See, they don't want the teachers going in and looking at the wee-wees of the transgender people. They want the doctor to do it. If and only if it's in question. And yet there are still people running around, and we'll look at a couple like that are trying to tell you. Thankfully, they're op-eds, they're not green check verified. that are telling you that no, the coaches want to go inspect the genitals of minors to make sure they're not transitioning. Like this one from the USA Today. Ohio bill targeting transgender athletes with genital check is only about cruelty. From Nancy Armour. And not bad, because there is no Ohio law or Ohio bill that makes a genital check. The politicians who claim to be oh so concerned about kids sure don't hesitate to sign their death warrants. Not content with banning transgender girls and young women from playing sports, Ohio House Republicans are encouraging people to hunt them down. Anyone could question the gender of a female athlete under legislation that jammed through Wednesday night, and those girls and young women would have to verify the gender through genital inspection. That's right, a physically intrusive exam that has no other purpose than to stigmatize and demean them. With suicide rates among transgenders youth at a horrifyingly high, nearly 1 in 5 attempted suicides in the last year, according to research from the Trevor Project. While over half seriously considered it, this will only cause more harm, which is the point. It's heartbreaking to see transgender youth used as political pawns and have their well-being sacrificed for political fundraising and to try to increase their energy among a certain base. Casey Pick, Senior Fellow for Advocacy and Governmental Affairs at the Trevor Project, told USA Today Sports on Friday. These bills take away sports as an important source of belonging in a space where LGBTQIRAMIGIXTYAMILTAB7 plus sign minus sign youth can feel affirmed. And for the bullies and bigots who are okay with picking on trans girls, your cisgender daughters and granddaughters won't be safe either. Any girl who's tall or muscular or has short hair or doesn't look girly enough, whatever that means, will be suspect. Because the legislation is so vague, opposing coaches, parents, and players will no doubt use it as an opportunity to get a talented player off the field or court. Across the country, as people have been testifying in support of these bills, time and time again, they'll call out one team they say has a transgender athlete. Turns out, no, they didn't. The athletes they were calling out, maybe it was a queer girl, maybe it was a girl of color, KTZed. No, there is no intrusive genital check. If and only if it's in question. And the Ohio Capitol Journal as well. GOP passes bill aiming to root out suspected transgender female athletes with genital inspection. No, they didn't. You know it, and I know it. The following article was originally published on news5cleveland.com and is published in the Ohio Capitol Journal under a content sharing agreement. Unlike other OCJ articles, it is not available for free republication by other news outlets as it's owned by WEWS in Cleveland. I might actually not be able to do this then. You know what? We're not going to do that. Just for legal purposes. All right, one coming from our friends over at Amazon, from Insider. Amazon employees storm a company Pride Month celebration protesting the sale of transphobic content. Republicans are book burning. Now, let's burn all these books that are transphobic. From Catherine Long. Amazon employees staged a die-in Wednesday at the company's Seattle headquarters, disrupting a company LGBTQIRAMIGIXTYAYAYM LTB plus divided sign XIAMGIXTY month celebration in protest of Amazon's continued sale of transphobic books. The protest comes amid increased employee activism at the large technology company, including unionization campaigns among Amazon's U.S. warehouse workers. Amazon did not immediately respond to our request for comment. The company has previously said that it supports trans rights and its LGBT, you get the picture, employees. The nearly 30 protesters who stormed a company-sponsored pride flag-raising ceremony in Amazon's Seattle campus Wednesday included members of the internal LGBT alphabet activist group No Hate at Amazon. In speeches, protesters accused the company of attempting to rainbow wash its image, obviously, while making money off the sale of content that harms transgender people. Other alphabet mafia groups that have leveled similar concerns against Amazon, including Seattle Pride, which this year barred Amazon from sponsoring its... Wow, they're going to keep putting that over there. Over the company's... sponsoring its annual Pride Parade, over the company's financial donations to politicians who actively propose and support anti-LGBT legislation, oppose pro-LGBT and other human rights legislation, and allowing anti-LGBT organizations to raise funds from their Amazon Smile program, the group said in a statement in March. Nearly 600 Amazon employees signed a petition earlier this year asking Amazon to stop selling the books Irreversible Damage and Johnny the Walrus. Republicans, the evil book burners. You know, the people who came out and said, yes, we want these books to continue to be in circulation, just not in school libraries, versus people who don't want the books to be in circulation. And to give workers more say over which books the company decides to stop selling, employees say both books fall under Amazon's 2021 ban on selling books framing transgender and other sexual identities as mental illnesses. Amazon's decision to continue selling those books and others in face of employee dissent has led some employees to resign. So, the formal protest, a die-in, was intended to highlight the transgender youth who face discrimination and are denied gender-affirming healthcare attempt suicide at rates many times higher than the general population. And, let me add, that they attempt even more after gender-affirming care. So there it is. You have the die-in with the flags on top. That's a nice touch. President Biden has a message for you. Let's listen.
Since I took office, families are carrying less debt. Their average savings are up. A recent survey from the Federal Reserve found that more Americans feel financially comfortable than any time since the survey began in 2013. Since I took office, families are carrying less debt. Their average savings are up. A recent survey from the Federal Reserve found that more Americans feel financially comfortable than any time since the survey began in...
Yeah, I'm going to call bullshit on this. I got a significant raise not that long ago. And I sit back now and look and realize that I have to pick and choose what it is that I buy. I actually have to think about it because gas is so unbelievably high. And one of the things that I've noted as well is families are saving much more and carrying much less debt. I've seen some conflicting reports about this. I do see that people are taking out their food bills on credit, which I've not come to that point yet, but it's been close a couple times. When I go to the grocery store, I look back and, well, I paid for groceries on credit, but because I didn't have my debit card on me. Because I just changed, I was using it over here and it was still sitting on my desk when I got to the checkout. So I've done that situation. That's happened before, but there are families out there who are putting their weekly groceries on a credit more often. There are families that do it all the time anyway because, you know, they get the cash back or the bonus for it. But those families can typically go back and pay it back right away, especially if they've got a good cashback card. But I'm also noticing that people are less inclined to go out and take out a loan because the interest rate's higher right now, because the prime rate is higher. They're less likely to go out and buy a house right now because the interest rate is higher, the mortgage rate is higher. So this may be the thing of they're taking on less debt, but part of that is because I think a lot of them are afraid to spend money right now because they're afraid they're going to get screwed over if they do. And their savings? Their savings may be up, but they're in inflated dollars too. The New York Post, This Week in Whoppers, Biden's bald-faced baloney, New York Times inflation emotion, and more. And I wanted to touch on that because this one was right on the top. This claim, since I took office, families have increased their savings and have less debt. We say, Biden's Wall Street Journal op-ed was a litany of lies. Just take this one line from which the president provided no proof. In fact, Americans had record levels of debt after Biden's first year in office, seeing $1 trillion hike in the consumer debt from 2020 to 2021. Sure, savings soared over the pandemic start with government stimulus and widespread lockdowns, but Bidenflation drove the personal savings rate to 4.4% in April, the lowest recorded since September of 2008. And Americans' non-retirement savings have dropped 15% year over year. As for retirement savings, well, just look at the stock market if you can bear it. And yeah, it's all right there for you. And if you wanted further off of this, from CNBC, nearly half of families with kids can no longer afford enough food 5 months after child tax credit ended. From Carmen Reinecke. Without the child tax credit, Stormy Johnson has been skipping her own meals so her kids can eat. That's a true parent right there. Johnson, 45, works as a student support specialist in Preston County Schools in Kingwood, West Virginia. Before the monthly enhanced child tax credit payments lapsed in December, she received an additional $500 each month for her 2 children, Violet, 15, and Tristan, 14, whom she parents alone. Without the extra money and with increased prices due to inflation, Johnson's budget is stretched thin. Dude, that's like a $50,000 a year job. I think it's more than that. It's been a struggle for sure, said Johnson. I'm just making sure my kids have what they need. And honestly, I think that's taken a toll on my health physically. Child tax credit was expanded in 2021 through President Brandon's American Rescue Plan. The legislation boosted the credit from $3,000 to $2,000. Or to $3,000 rather, from $2,000, with a $600 bonus for kids under the age of 6 for the 2021 tax year. Half the credit was delivered in monthly payments, which ran from July 2021 to December of 2021, in deposits of $300 for children under the age of 6 and $250 for those aged 6 to 17. Families receive the second half of the credit in a lump sum when they file taxes this year. Now, 5 months after the payment stopped, many families are struggling to make ends meet. Nearly half the parents who say they used to get the checks now say they can't afford enough food to feed their families, according to a May survey of 500 parents from Parents Together Action, a nonprofit. In addition to the increased costs of food, families are noticing rising prices of gasoline, childcare, and rent due to inflation, the survey showed. And yet, we're sitting in this situation where in 2019, where there was no child tax credit increase, these same parents were doing just fine. But don't worry, the economy's roaring along greatly. From Fox News, baby formula shortage, government watchdog announces FDA audit. From Paul Best. The Inspector General of the Department of Health and Human Services will audit the FDA's decision to close an Abbott nutrition plant, which has contributed to the nationwide shortage of baby formula. We will determine whether the FDA allowed the inspections and recall process for infant formula in accordance with federal requirements. The HHS Inspector General said on Thursday. The Abbott nutrition plant in Sturgis, Michigan was temporarily shut down in February, and several brands of powdered formula were recalled after 4 infants contracted bacterial infections, leading to hospitalizations and 2 deaths. Abbott has denied that its plant was responsible for the infection, saying that samples from ill infants did not match the strains of bacteria found in the plant. The out-of-stock rate for baby formula nationwide hit 70% last month, according to retail analytics from firm DataSembly, which tracks the supply across 155,000 stores in the U.S. The out-of-stock rate was between 2% and 8% for the first half of 2021, but jumped to 23% in January and hit 33% by April. The government has acknowledged some missteps in handling the shortage, with FDA Commissioner Robert Califf telling Congress last week that the response was too slow and there were decisions that were suboptimal along the way. President Biden said Thursday that he wasn't aware of the shortages until April, even though the executives of the companies that produce the infant formula said at a White House roundtable this week that they knew shutting Abbott's plant would affect the supply. They did, but I didn't, said Biden on Thursday. Oh God, he said it again. Here's the deal, Fat. I became aware of this problem sometime in early April, how intense it was, the president continued. And so we did everything in our power from that point on. And that's all I can tell you right now. Otherwise, I might get in trouble. And we're going to continue to do it until we get the job done, man. Come on. The White House invoked the Defense Production Act to speed up domestic production and started flying in infant formula from overseas. We started begging overseas for infant formula. That went to doctors' offices. So this one here, I saved this search. This was a trend last night, and I just wanted to talk about it. I was not able to find a video of Chuck Todd saying this, which I'm actually a little surprised. I figured for sure that they'd be out here plastering this all over the place. But we have a trend on Chuck Todd. Because Chuck Todd went on and said that Biden doesn't have a loyal fan base. And now everyone's coming out here and telling the world that Chuck Todd doesn't have a loyal fan base. Angry Bunny says, Chuck Todd doesn't realize you don't have to be buying $60 red hats to have a base. This is politics, not a sporting event. The people wasting their money on that shit are the same complaining about gas prices. Lindy Lee, Chuck Todd, who was demoted at NBC precisely because he has no loyal fan base, claims President Biden has no loyal fan base. Biden received 81,282,916 votes. Honk, honk. Honk, 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 honk. The most in history. More votes than Barack Obama. Honk, honk. 10 scoops of ice cream. Freest and fairest election in history. Honk, honk. We wanted a president, not a deranged cult figure. I've been his fan since day one. We know his heart. Keith Olbermann, I warned you about Chuck Todd. And this is what Chuck Todd is. And Ricky Davila, we'll get the last one up here. No, we'll do Kentucky Sparky too. Every weekend without fail, Chuck Todd trends because he is a horrible commentator and propagandist for the GQP. I absolutely despise him. I'll never understand why NBC keeps him. Which I have seen this specific account praising Chuck Todd when he says something good about the left. Kentucky Spark, Joe Biden is a politician, not a musician, athlete, or celebrity. I'm not a Joe Biden fan. I'm a loyal Joe Biden voter, though, and Chuck Todd should know the difference. Trump had fans, Biden had voters. It's not a cult. From the Daily Wire, even Cardi misses Trumpnomics. Cardi B wants to know when they will announce the recession. From Virginia Kruta. We might get close to getting done here today. Rapper and singer Cardi B raised a few eyebrows on Sunday when she tweeted about a possible economic recession and wondered when the experts were going to announce that one was already on the horizon. Cardi, my dear, it's already here. When y'all think they're going to announce that we're going into a recession, she asked. It's here. Some were quick to point out the typical definition of a recession meant at least 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a recession is a period, usually 6 months, of low economic activity when investments lose value, businesses fail, and unemployment rises. When we have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, that's what a recession is. There was a recession under Trump in 2020. Both folks ignored it because of COVID. Reese, the one, tweeted. We didn't have 2 quarters, we had 1 quarter. But most just responded to Cardi B's assessment with their own hot takes. Even Cardi misses Trumpnomics, rather. So the person who wrote WAP was more informed than the US government? LOL. We already know, sis, Full Court Pumps tweeted. Matt's Idea Shop offered a possible alternate meaning for the acronym in Cardi B's song WAP. He argued that it now stands for weak-ass president. Yeah, we're already there, though. Maybe not by the main definition of 2 consecutive quarters, but we're there. And yes, we were there under Trump as well. But again, not under the economic definition of 2 consecutive quarters. From Fox News, Biden admin holding school lunch money hostage to force transgender policies, activist parent says. From Tenny Sahakian, the Biden admin is using lunch money to hold school districts hostage, the head of a conservative advocacy group said in response to the Department of Agriculture's announcement it would require certain schools to allow trans students to use the bathroom of their preferred gender. Schools awarded money for the Food and Nutrition Service, an agency within the USDA, must specify their policies that discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation is prohibited. The department announced on Monday it's also said allegations of such discrimination must be investigated. What you're seeing here is really the Biden admin saying, you're going to do what I want or I'm going to take your lunch money. Wow, that's actually hilarious. I can't believe I just said that about Fox News. Fight for Schools Executive Director Ian Pryor told Fox News, I'm going to take you out behind the school, behind the gym, and I'm going to take your lunch money, okay? Come on, man. Let's go do a push-up contest. That was funny. I can't believe I just said that about Fox News. For the federal government to come in and really tie school nutrition and school lunch programs to this radical ideology is terrifying and it's appalling. FNS administers several nutrition-related programs, including WIC and the SNAP. It also runs the National School Lunch Program, which provides free or low-cost lunches for children and on average fed nearly 30 million kids per day prior to the pinko pox pandemic. Why? And yes, this goes back to under Trump, too. Why are there so many kids going hungry right now that have to qualify for government assistance? The announcement essentially amounts to the Biden admin holding state and local school districts hostage with school lunch money that goes to underprivileged youth in order to pass transgender non-discrimination policies, Pryor told Fox News. The USDA said its announcement is part of the president's executive order extending Title IX to include discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Children should be able to learn without worrying about whether they'll be denied access to the restroom, the locker room, or school sports, the order states. They also should be able to go into the locker room or the bathroom without worrying that they'll be raped by a boy in the girls' bathroom, but here we are. Pryor told Fox News, I honestly have no idea how providing food to children in schools is somehow connected to transgender policies. What we see here is the Biden admin using children as pawns in the social justice, gender ideology game that they are playing. Well said. Well said. And once again, and this is the big problem that I have with welfare payments, with the stimulus, and yes, even though I did cash 2 of the stimulus checks because they told me I had no choice, and they were going to keep trying to send it to me over and over again until I cashed it. But with any of this, you're on the hook for this. And when the government comes calling to call that debt, you're not going to have a lot of legs to stand on. Now we've given you this bonus. Now you better do what we say or we're going to take it back away. See, look how nice it is that you get this bonus here. Oh, wouldn't it be a shame if somebody took it away from the kids, you know? Anything that comes out of the government, and I said this when the first stimulus came out, has a gigantic hook attached to it. Always has, always will. Fish, meat hook. And you got baited with the free money. Here's some news that we haven't heard for in a while. Kiev under siege again as missile flies critically low over nuke plant. From Ben Kesslin. Russian missiles struck Kiev on Sunday for the first time in more than a month, with one of the weapons flying critically low over a nuclear power plant, Ukraine said. The Russians still do not understand even the slightest fragment of rocket enters working power unit can cause nuclear catastrophe, wrote Energoatom, Ukraine's state nuclear power company, in a statement Sunday on Telegram. Ukraine's military said it was able to shoot down one of the missiles around 6 a.m. local time, and at least one person was hospitalized from the attacks on its railway infrastructure. The Kremlin said it destroyed Ukrainian tanks and other armored vehicles that were being hidden at railway repair sites. The Ukrainian railway official acknowledged the attacks destroyed the eastern Kiev facility, but no military vehicles were at the site. Initial reports show Moscow launched the missiles from the Caspian Sea, according to Ukraine's Air Force. The attack, the first in weeks on Kiev, put an end to somewhat return to normal in Kiev, where Russian troops largely fled as part of the new strategy to focus on the Donbass region. Yeah, they weren't going to stop, and you kind of knew that too. In the wake of the strikes, presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak said the West will do what must be. The West still must do more to halt Russia's offensive. Kremlin resorts to new insidious attacks. Today, missile strikes at Kiev have one goal: kill as many as possible, Podolyak tweeted. For what it is worth, I have got to say, for all the warmongers in Congress, for all the people beneficiaries of Northrop Grumman money, our country has done a very good job not putting troops on the ground there in a situation where I thought for sure it was coming. I thought on March 1st that we were going to have a complement in there and sticking it up the ass of Moscow already. I don't like the fact that the war is going on there, but I do have to respect the restraint that we see coming off of this. From the Blaze. Elon Musk sets Twitter ablaze by asking a curious question about Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, the media, and the DOJ. From Paul Saka. Elon caused quite a stir on Twitter this weekend by asking the intriguing question about Epstein, Ghislaine, and the media and the Department of Justice. One of the top trending topics on Twitter on Saturday was Jeffrey Epstein. Musk set the trending topic ablaze when he tweeted a question about the deceased convicted pedophile. Only one thing more remarkable than the DOJ not leaking the list is that no one on the media cares. Musk wrote and then asked the question, doesn't that seem odd? Musk also shared a meme caption, things I'll never see in my lifetime. The meme features photos of fantastical things such as dragons, dinosaurs, and unicorns. The meme also included the words, the Epstein-Maxwell client list. Musk then joked, sometimes I think my list of enemies is too short, so... Musk has made enemies with the media in recent months because of his acquisition of Twitter, including the Washington Post, which wrote hit pieces on the billionaire. Epstein had relationships with former President Clinton, Prince Andrew, and Bill Gates. Gates and Musk, the fourth and first richest people in the world, respectively, have an ongoing feud. Musk allegedly ditched Gates on a scheduled meeting after finding out the Microsoft co-founder bet against Tesla stock. Yeah, I'd kind of like to see that list too, but yeah, we're never going to see that. That's never going to be there. That's never going to be in the public eye. This is kind of funny. Twitter says waiting period for Musk's deal has expired. Right as Kyle Rittenhouse and Nicholas Sandmann's lawyer are getting ready to launch a major lawsuit against Facebook. TikTok, it's time for the CEOs and the board to get out of there as fast as they can. Oh, you want to sue Twitter? Oh, that's Elon's problem. That's not us. From Reuters. Twitter said on Friday that the waiting period under the HSR Act for Elon's $44 billion acquisition of the social media firm has expired. Completion of the deal is now subject to remaining customary closing conditions, including approval by Twitter stockholders and the receipt of applicable regulatory approvals, Twitter said. The HSR Act, or the Hart-Scott-Rodino Antitrust Improvements Act, requires parties to report large transactions to both the Federal Trade Commission and the U.S. Department of Justice Antitrust Division for review. The development comes as Musk said last month that the Twitter deal was temporarily on hold while he sought more information about the proportion of fake accounts on the platform. Musk has secured funding for the deal, which includes $3.5 billion through equity financing and $13 billion through loans against Twitter. Twitter shares rose about 2% to 40.62 in pre-market trading. Yeah, it kind of sounds here like they're trying to get out of this before the crap hits the fan. Daily Wire reports CNN announces new programming plan and Elon Musk is already on board. Despite the uncertainty that followed CNN after the merger with Warner Brothers Discovery, the rapid demise of fledgling streaming service CNN Plus, the new network appears to have a new plan going forward, and billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk has already given that plan a tentative nod. According to the New York Times report published on Sunday, CNN's new chief executive, Chris Licht, wants the cable news giant to focus more on nuance rather than hype. A month into his tenure, the new leader of CNN, Chris Licht, is changing the news network from the Jeff Zucker days, encouraging less hype and more nuance. Some of the network are skeptical, the New York Times tweeted. Bye-bye breaking news banners. A month into his tenure, as the new leader of CNN, Chris Licht is changing the news network from the Zucker days. The Times noted that Licht, who previously worked for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, made a rapid jump from managing a show that employed around 200 people to running a major network that employed some 4,000, and the report claimed that CNN journos say they wonder if he can navigate a sprawling, unwieldy global network past what has been a no-good, very bad year. In addition to the decidedly inauspicious launch of CNN Plus, the network lost one of its most watched anchors when Cuomo was fired, in part for advising his brother amid his own sexual harassment and assault allegations. A short time later, just weeks ahead of the merger and streaming service launch, Jeff Zucker announced his resignation over an undisclosed relationship with employee Alison Gallist. Despite rumors that their involvement had been an open secret, Zucker resigned immediately after disclosing the relationship, and Gallist followed him out the door shortly thereafter. Again, that sounds to me a lot like the fact that this is going to be we had to get out before we lost our asses on this. Some good news from Newsweek. Ford invests in Midwest manufacturing, says lays out plans for Mustang and Ranger. From Eileen Falkenberg Hull. I remind you, the Mustang Mach-E is not a Mustang. Ford will invest $3.7 billion in the coming years as it beefs up its Midwest manufacturing capabilities and prepares for launch of the next-gen Ford Mustang and Ranger in North America. Today, the company announced its financial commitment along with a pledge of 6,200 new UAW union jobs. Ford is already America's top employer of hourly auto workers. The moves are expected to create a further 74,000 indirect jobs in America by the end of 2026, based on a 2020 study by BCG on the economic impact of the F-Series production. Alongside the jobs announcement, the company made Product News. A statement from Ford regarding the announcement revealed that a new electric commercial vehicle plant for Ford Pro customers will begin to be produced at its Ohio plant mid-decade. Plant expansion at that site to accommodate the plans will begin this year. Yeah, there are a lot of companies out there that are looking at electric commercial vehicles. I don't know how well it'll work long term, but I mean, we can't start to improve it until we actually get them out on the road and see where they fail as well. So the cost of the expansion will be $1.5 billion when complete. 1,800 union jobs will be installed. Additionally, the company will spend $100 million investing in Lima engine and Sharonville transmission plants, adding to the 90 jobs along the way. Ford today confirmed that Michigan will continue to be home to the Mustang and Ranger as both models move into their next generation. The new Ford Ranger has already debuted for a global audience. The company's Michigan assembly plant in Wayne will construct the Ranger, while the Mustang Coupe will be produced at Flat Rock Assembly Plant. Those hubs, in addition to the expansion of Ford's Route Electric Vehicle Center in Dearborn, account for $2 billion and 3,200 of the jobs. $2 billion and 3,200 of the jobs. So, lots and lots and lots of new jobs coming here. Electric transit vehicles. Again, I probably wouldn't get one of the first generation ones. But regardless, if we're ever going to get them out and approve them, we need to see where they fail, which means they need to start having road tests. It's the same thing, or determine that they can't be used at this time with the technology that we have. It's the same thing when they switched out to CNG vehicles for diesel. You don't see a lot of those anymore because a lot of people realize that the CNG engine wasn't up to the task of pulling the same kind of weight that a diesel engine could. They're really, really good for like paper transport companies and stuff like that. But as far as taking a regular load across the country or even on a regional route, no, they don't do so well with that. There are fewer places to fuel them, and I was working on the floor at a dealership that was certified for CNG at the time. They do not hold up to the pressure, and they break all the time. All the time. It's a more volatile fuel that actually has an explosion in it. Trying to do the work of a slow burn fuel that can get monstrous torque out of it. But I'm sure there are paths out there right now, especially with diesel being over $5 a gallon, to go back and try to revamp the technology and do it again. And figuring out where they can cut corners and actually get these things back out onto the road. I actually wouldn't be surprised to start seeing some CNG trucks again. Alright, can we do any more? No, it's 10, and it's time for Daily Ignoramus. So, let's, I guess let's skip the rest of this. Well, now that I'm not doing Monday's show, we'll actually move this down to tomorrow's show again. But before we head out of here, let's do rules of acquisition. And then, if you're on the Twitch side, stick with us, because we'll raid over to the Daily Ignoramus. But on Monday, we always finish out the show reading one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. Ferengi being ultra-capitalist and myself being ultra-capitalist, we always look at the rules that are into the Ferengi religion, decide how well they work and how they work for our everyday lives. So, we're scrolling down quite a bit. We're going through them pretty quickly here. So we did the 79th last week, Beware the Vulcan Greed for Knowledge. Today, because they're in canon, it's not an 80th or 81st, we will be moving right down to the 82nd rule of acquisition. The flimsier the product, the higher the price. This also comes, just like last week's entry, from the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition DS9 reference book, which again, they skipped around and they missed a few of them as well. And I think this is pretty obvious. Something that is going to... It's not even just about the greed and the fact that the stuff is going to fall apart, whereas the high quality stuff is going to last forever and people are going to maybe spend a little bit more money off of it off the top, but have it for a long time, is that people are going to be coming in and buying over and over again on a flimsy product. If something is going to fall apart over and over again, number one, you're going to have to put the time, effort, and materials into finding a way to mass produce it quickly and rapidly, because there's going to be demand for it over and over again. It's not just the fact that it's going to fall apart and you've got the market cornered on it, but the fact is that you do have to engineer it, because the more people buy it and buy it and buy it and buy it, the more you have to produce and produce and produce and produce. So yes, there is a higher price involved in a cheaper, flimsier product sometimes. And we can use that, especially on our own as well, to look at the fact of, oh, am I going to get the flimsy product that I'll have to buy again and again and again? And are they going to jack the price? Or how much am I going to spend in the long term, rather maybe spending a little bit more for something that I only have to buy once and never have to buy again, and that the producer will not have to sit and find a way to produce quickly at a rapid pace. So there's some intelligence. This is not just greed, but there's some actual look into the production process out of it as well. So it's something to watch for, it's something to see, and with that, we are going to head out of here. Let's throw some outro music up here. Although those Game Chops beats are pretty cool too. But with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. Don't need to have both musics competing, do I? So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who came and hung out with us and came and stuck around for us. If you are on Twitch, stick around. We are going to head over straight into the Daily Ignoramus right now, so come back and join us here. Once again, a reminder, if you weren't here for last week's KTZed Redemption, there is no more KTZed Redemption. I don't know what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day. It's kind of weird having the rest of the day off, but I probably will go hit the gym. I'll maybe do a little hiking or something along the way. Maybe I'll go get some laundry done. I don't know. Maybe we'll do a game later on. We'll see what happens with that. I know that we are going to want to move over and maybe go raid the Mazo Minx audience or something. We'll figure something out here, but definitely doing some more time, doing some more stuff with the website, doing some more stuff for the side revenue stream. But definitely, there's still work to be done, so don't worry about me. You don't have to call me and check on me to make sure I'm not bored. But with that, we are going to head out of here. Stick around for the Daily Ignoramus. We will see you here tomorrow with more headlines and more news. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.